Hey, what's going on, everybody? Derek James here with GovKid Method. You don't see me right now. I'm sharing my screen. Facebook Live allows you two options. You can either be on camera or you can share your screen. But what I wanted to do today and kind of get a feel to see if there's any interest for this is kind of how I quickly read through FBO RFPs, solicitations, sources sought, pre-solicitations, these different types of opportunities to quickly decide if this is something I'm interested in pursuing or not. It might be slightly different than the way that you do it. I think everybody does it differently. So I thought there might be some value in, I've literally logged thousands of hours of reading through FBO. So I've gotten pretty good at it. I'm able to go through it pretty quickly. So bear with me. I'm going to probably toggle back and forth between the tabs here, and you see in this tab that it's kind of going crazy because that's Facebook for you. But I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to go and check out sources sought notices. I like doing these because they're rather quick. There's not a whole lot to read through. If there is a PWS statement of work, it's usually rather succinct, and you can quickly figure out what's going on. So I'm just going to dive into some of these sources soughts. And like I said, I'll toggle back and forth. I'm not sure if anybody's going to be joining live here. Brian George, and we have Dennis Nojic. I probably didn't pronounce that correctly. My apologies, but maybe I did. Maybe I got lucky. Thanks for joining here, guys. If you do have any questions while we're going through these, if you're going to hang out for a few minutes, I'll definitely check and try to answer those. As I mentioned at the beginning, I'm in sources soughts right now, and I'm going to kind of start just going through a few of these, pulling them out. Some of the things that I look for right off the bat is the locations to see, depending on what your target agency is going to be. That's something I talk about in my book. Army is big for me, so ACC Orlando steps out big time when I see that. I've definitely visited there, and I know the small business specialist down that way. And MIC as well, another big branch besides ACC as part of the Army. So this first one, ACC Orlando, Army Contracting Command, we have Digital Integration Lab. I'm already seeing that there are some changes here. And immediately I always scroll down to the bottom. It's the first thing I do to see if I know this POC at the bottom. Cindy Huertas, I do not know Cindy. And she's a contract specialist. The next thing I look at, kind of going backwards up, I look to see the number of documents that they have here. This is a sources sought. Usually there's not this many attachments. So this lets me know that there's kind of been something in the works. And that also means it might be a bigger procurement, which isn't necessarily good or bad. And then, I'm kind of just quickly perusing here, and I see that there's an industry day that they have coming up. So this definitely is going to be a little bit more involved. When looking at sources soughts, I always have in the back of my mind, is this something small? Is this something underneath, the acquisition threshold where they don't have to compete it? If I'm an 8A, is this something that I can pursue as a sole source or a directed award? Or if I'm a woman-owned, or a hub zone, the same thing. I always have that strategy in the back of my head. It's something like this is telling me automatically this is a high visibility project because of the amount of information that's already been poured into with the sources sought. Quickly here, just, the NAICS code is a rather typical professional services, technical services NAICS code. I want to point out, I actually don't even know what this is yet, and that's okay. I kind of go through things with a backwards strategy to see if it's even something, I'm interested in. And it really depends a whole lot on what business you are in. And I'm keeping this rather vague in general so that it can apply to anybody who is watching this. So I'm probably going to go ahead and click through a few of the attachments here. BJ Perry, I see that you joined. Thank you for joining, sir. So going back down to the attachments, we have an industry day questionnaire. I definitely want to open that. They have a PWS. If that's a long PWS, it's going to just tell us again how involved and how forecasted this already is in terms of a project. They may have been working on this damn thing for over a year, or it may have been something that, you know, they quickly put together 2 months ago. We don't know. It's probably unlikely that it's the short term. Here, let me go ahead and open this. So we have the Digital Integration Lab, DIL. Bounce back. All right. PWS, and I'm already seeing that this is, you know, like I said, they've spent a lot of time on this. This may be a carried on PWS. This project may have been something that was done previously and they're just carrying over on it. We don't know. What I would like to know pretty quickly is, you know, what the hell this thing is real fast. Let me go all the way back up to the title. You know, yeah, just Digital Integration Lab. ACC and the PEO office. And they're just letting us know this is an industry day. The DIL provides secure and centralized location for all PEO STRI programs. The industry day is, okay, so this here's a great point, and this is why I probably should have read this first. But it's we're only a few minutes in. Industry day will be held December 10th, 2018. You know, I'm sure you guys see this all the time. You have to be careful what you're looking at. This is already passed. And that's why it's so important to look at these changes too. So I'm going to go ahead and pull ahead this top change. Usually I look at that first, but for this time I didn't for whatever reason. So this is a change. They may have postponed the date. I mean, it's still saying it's held here on the December 10th. And usually when there is a change, they let you know exactly what that change is right up top. So here's what this is. This makes sense. So there was an industry day held. There was questions and answers. That vendors, contractors who visited had a certain amount of time to respond with questions after the industry day. And this is the answers that the government has posted to the questions, and they have to post this publicly for everybody to see so that there is no privy of information to people who were able to attend the industry day against those who weren't able to attend. Everybody has to have the same amount of information. So I'm not going to go ahead and read through these because I really don't care. This is just a you know, an exercise. Kind of really what we can, you know, learn from this is, yeah, start with the most recent posting. If you're new to FBO, that might be something to learn. I didn't expect that to happen. That's why I didn't start with it, but it's no big deal. As you can see, we're probably about 10 minutes in or so. I'm going to go ahead and close this out. So hopefully you all understand what's going on with that one. It's a rather large project for the Digital Integration Lab. As we mentioned, they already had the industry day. Now they're getting some questions answered. Next step, there's going to be a pre-solicitation issued, which will more than likely answer any further questions, and we'll probably let you know of the solicitation RFP release date that is forthcoming, probably within at least a few months, but maybe not even that soon. We don't know, but that's kind of the status and what's going on with this thing. So that's kind of how you could interpret it. And, you know, again, as we mentioned at the beginning, Cindy Huertas is the person who is the POC. If you had any questions on this, if this is something you were interested in, yeah, this was ACC Orlando. So if you have any relationships there, if you're out that way, it might be something to check out. It might or might not be. We haven't gotten into the scope or magnitude a whole lot. So that's really where you answer that type of question. But because I know that this is an industry day that's already happened, I don't have any interest in going further at this time. And I'm going to pull up this next one here that we pulled up together, the MIC Fort Sam Houston one. I'm just going to hop on back over first. if it will let me. To see if I'm trying to hop back over to the Facebook group, but for some reason it's not allowing me to do that, to see if there was any questions on that first one. It's not letting me at the moment, guys. If you asked a question, I apologize. This is my first time actually using the screen share. Usually my Facebook Lives are all done on camera, so I'll get that worked out. But moving on to the next one to not delay, we had the MIC, Mission Installation Contracting Command. If you're not familiar, the MIC and ACC are terrific agencies to do business with. If you haven't done a whole lot with the DoD specifically or the Army, the Army is really, MIC, ACC, and then you have the, the Army National Guard, the Air National Guard. And those are all agencies that I've done business with. And just like with any agency, it's kind of what you make of it. It's different. So you just have to learn how to handle it. A lot of people will say that doing business with the DoD is difficult, and the contracting officers and the corps are they're strict and they're not even willing to budge on a project. They're penny wise and they're pound foolish, and all these sorts of things. You just kind of have to learn how to work with it, and once you do, you start to develop those relationships, and they learn to trust you, and you kind of just work your way into the circle, and eventually you kind of get over that hump. But I do understand that some new contractors coming into the field do face that, and it's a little shocking if you're used to doing business with agencies outside the DoD, and then you come into that. It's definitely a little different, but don't let it stop you. But it is something to be cognizant of. So again, here we are, the second source I sought. We are MIC, Fort Sam Houston. We have no changes here. I'm gonna scroll back to the bottom. We have Madeline Allison and Angela Hatcher. I do know Miss Hatcher. I don't know the primary POC. However, we have 5 attachments here. I can quickly see that they're the statement of work, and then a few other sample documents that will be good for you to know. I see this top one is just background check screening form. Can we back up here? So what is this thing? What can we gather just from quickly looking at this? I don't always point it out, but I always look here very, very quickly, and I see what NAICS code this is. This is ambulatory healthcare services. So it's very specific, very niche, and they do have this set aside 8A, which means more than likely this was probably in the 8A program prior, because that's how it works. Once a procurement that's done year on year is in the 8A program, in order to take it out of the 8A program, they have to have it released from the SBA that it is awarded to. And so the fact that this is only a market research, a source is sought, so they don't even know who's out there, but they're already saying we're going to put it in the smaller pool of 8A companies. This is probably something that was done in the past, or they have an 8A goal, and they have a small business office that really feels like they can do it. 8As can do it. 8A companies can do it, so that they already know that they want to put this through 8A. I can kind of already tell you, because of the NAICS code that this is in, ambulatory healthcare, there's not going to be a lot of companies that do this, because this is very, very specific, very niche, and they're probably already working with an 8A on this. But if you are an 8A, there may be an opportunity for you here, because the former 8A may have graduated from the program, and they may be looking for a new company, because you don't know if they had sole sourced this before. You don't know if it's under that $4 million threshold or not. They may or may not have been doing that. So we don't know the full picture yet on this. But again, it's great to have the POCs at the bottom, because as this is a source of sought and market research, you can pretty much ask any questions that you want. And yeah, look, you even have a phone number, and half the time they don't give you the phone number. So if you did have questions in this, my guess is if this is something you were interested in, you would probably already know about it, because like I said, it's so specific. If you're in the ambulatory healthcare services, medical transport, anything like that, you know, you're going to have vehicles, you're going to have drivers. More importantly, you're going to have a very specialized type of insurance. And that's not something that, you know, a professional services company would just hop into, or they would just, you know, find a subcontractor and sub that out necessarily. So I don't know how much more I want to look at this one because I don't know how much it will apply. But just generally speaking, that's what's going on. I'll see if there's any good points I can just point out here. Letting us know this has been put under NAICS code with size standard 15,000. I don't know if I've ever seen a 15,000 size standard before. I think they mean million. Yeah, I'm not sure what they're doing there, but I know 56110 is not 7.5K. I believe it's 7.5 million. So that might be a mistake there. Aside from that, source of soughts always require a response. However, the response is nowhere near as lengthy as a solicitation or an RFP. They're so kind to number what they want. So in this one, they want the typical name, cage code, socioeconomic status, easy breezy. That's usually in your, you know, in your cover letter or your executive summary anyways. Number two, identify where their firm is interested in competing for this requirement as a prime. So it's just one, you know, one sentence regarding previous experience. So there's your past performance. You should already have that written up. Number four, information help determine if this requirement is commercially available, including pricing information. I would not give them pricing information because technically they're not supposed to be asking for pricing information in a source of sought. And if you give it to them, it's just theirs to use, and they're going to help form their IGE or their IGCE with that information, and they're going to use it against you. So I in no way would give them pricing information. And, you know, this ain't my first rodeo. I've seen this many times before. I've responded to many source of soughts that have included pricing information. I'll just put NA or, you know, discussion upon request or something like that. And it's never really been an issue submitting my research. I haven't had my information like kicked back or anything. So don't worry about that. Number five, how can Army best structure these contract requirements to facilitate competition? Well, you know, they're kind of already answering their own question because they already set this aside as an 8A. So competition will be vastly restricted between that and the NAICS code. However, this is not legal jargon, but it's jargon that they have to put in here to make their bosses happy. And, you know, and I'm only half joking about that. They have to show that that due diligence was taken in the procurement procedure in case something is to happen, or if there's a protest, they can pull up the folder and say, hey, we laid it all out there. So, you know, like I said, I'm only half joking. They do have to put this in here. It is important if those situations ever arise, and they do arise, you know, somewhat often. Number six, identify any condition or action that may be having the effect of unnecessarily restricting competition. Well, you know, going 8A with this, and I love 8As. So, you know, if I was an 8A responding to this, I wouldn't even really say anything. I would say not applicable, that I don't see anything unnecessarily restricting competition with this. Now, if I was somebody on the outside who wasn't an 8A and I wanted to open this up, maybe I would respond to this and say, hey, you know, I have extremely strong past performance. I'm in the area. I know this requirement. This is unreasonably restricting competition because I can't bid. And that just kind of lets them know that there are other companies, should it, you know, an 8A fail on this, or should they not receive enough 8A responses, it's already set aside, so they don't need to do the rule of 2 here. But I don't know how, you know, I don't know how much that would help. But again, it's how do you want to answer the question? You can answer it the one way or the other. And number 7, recommendations to improve or approach the PWS. Well, you read the PWS and see if you have any ideas. Number 8, given the geographic range of the requirement, so your location, highlight your experience as it relates to a staffing approach similar to the scope and complexity. for the EFMP respite care support services across the United States, including Hawaii, Alaska, and Puerto Rico. So expand and explain on your scope, on your past performances, geographically speaking. And again, like if this is not your niche, I'm only going through these questions again as a vague, generally speaking, that can benefit anybody who's watching this, because a lot of these questions will come up again and again. These questions are not niche specific. That's the only time I'm taking time to go through these today with you guys. But again, like I was saying, it's how you want to answer these to demonstrate, but you don't have to go too crazy, because this is not a proposal. It's just market research. So you kind of have to walk the line and learn to play the game with responding to these, with, you know, providing something that you already have written as a template and a boilerplate, and then just, you know, adding or customizing that to better answer these questions. But a lot of these questions are boilerplate, and so they're going to expect, you know, some of the answers to have a foundation of a boilerplate, and then maybe just customize a little bit to best match this type of solicitation or source of sought, rather. That's how I would recommend that you respond to these, for the sake of time. You know, when I was really aggressive at my last job, I would try to do 5 source of sought responses a day. And granted, we were pursuing a lot of different type of work, so it allowed me to, you know, have a bigger list to pull from. But I've seen so many of these damn things that, and I can tell you that a lot of times they don't even read them. They just kind of print them off. The contracting officers and specialists kind of print them off, and they'll just keep them because, like I said, they're there if they have them. And then when they have their meeting after the response date has ended, you know, they go in a room and they sit with a small business office and the KO and the chief of contracting or whoever. Every base and agency runs their ship differently, but generally speaking, there's a meeting, and they'll look at the socioeconomic statuses that they've received responses from. You know, does the rule of 2 apply? And you know, if they're having any issues, or if there's any specific information that they're wanting to know, then they'll typically go through and see if there's any gems or pearls that the contractors and vendors have provided in the responses. So that's kind of where you can stand out. And it also allows you the opportunity to follow back up after that response date has ended for the source of sought, and make a phone call and inquire if they've received your information. And you know, if you did provide some valuable information that's different as an improvement, ask them if they were able to, you know, review that, consider that. And again, not that in itself is going to do a whole lot, but as I talk about in the book, it's going to allow you to develop that relationship. It shows contracting that you're valuable, and that maybe when they're in a pinch, they can call upon you because you're somebody who knows your stuff and you're less of a risk, and you know, you just never know. And then you kind of play that game and you build that golden list that I talk about in the book of people, and you do that time and time again. And this is marketing, guys. This is building a reputation. And that's why I would do 5 source of soughts a day. And I would, you know, like I said, immediately scroll down to the bottom to say, hey, who's in contracting from a marketing standpoint? Because it's like, hey, I know that I submitted 2 source of soughts to Angelique last month and 3 the month before. She's going to start knowing my name. She's going to start knowing our company. If I'm adding, you know, custom responses, if I'm able to, you know, don't spend a whole lot of time doing it. But if you're going to be able to add something different, contracting will appreciate that. And let me tell you that it does not take a whole lot to be above average or to be above the norm of the responses that contracting receives. Just, you know, that little bit extra can make all the difference. And if you do that consistently, now all of a sudden you're going to be looking like, you know, a diamond in the rough. You know, you're going to stand out, and that is marketing. You're not responding to these source of soughts to try to win anything off the bat, unless you're, you know, you are an 8A and you're going to send, you know, a requirements letter from the SBA, a search letter. You know, that's a different strategy that I can talk about another time. But unless you're doing that, or even if you are doing it, either way, you're still marketing. And that's really the purpose of this. And so many people don't respond to source of thoughts. That's why I wanted to talk about that today and touch on this. Is it's an opportunity because, you know, it's a low barrier. They don't get a lot of responses. The responses that they get are usually incomplete or, you know, average at best. So now if you are coming in with a full, nice looking response, and I'm not saying to spend, you know, half of a day putting this thing together, you know, spend 90 minutes or less, especially if you have a template put together, but just put some nice stuff in it. And then when you go to respond to this, put your email together as well, and kind of pull out the highlights is what I would like to do. And maybe I'll show you that sometime. Put your source of thought response together in the words, you know, save it as a PDF, upload it to your email, and then, you know, get your standard 2 to 3 sentence in your email response. Put the, you know, the solicitation number, RFP number in the subject line, make it look professional exactly the way that they want it, so they know that they're dealing with somebody who knows what the hell they're talking about. Don't, you know, just say, you know, such, you know, XYZ company's response, like they don't know what the hell that is. They get hundreds of emails every day, just like me and just like you and everybody else. So do it the right way, and then pull the highlights out from your response, almost like an executive summary, like we learned back in college, guys, and pull out, you know, and, you know, use a little bit of creative marketing. Not talking about using a lot of colors and crazy stuff like that in the email, but, you know, bold it, do bold bullets, just make it very clear, simple, easy, and nice for them to read, and something that they can just look at for 2 seconds. And then they get this picture of like, wow, here's this XYZ company, you know, immediately I know that they've got their shit together, and like I have faith in them, I have trust in them. Before I even open this document, it's going to be what I wanted as a contracting officer or a specialist. I already have that faith. And then, you know, bullet and bold those points where you stand out so that they remember you. And then after the source of thought response date ends, follow up with that phone call. And if they don't answer, leave a voicemail, call again. And if not, after a few times, that's okay. Just do a reply or a forward to your email submission and ask that, because some of these folks, they only respond to emails. And then you can just do it that way. Say, hey, did you see my response? Do your little pitch, your little spiel there. And again, you know, you're not going to get 100% response rate, but going through those steps, it'll probably take you from a 40% response rate to an 80% response rate, going through those couple of extra steps. And that's where usually everybody falls off and they don't do it. And that's what I hate to see. You go through all this effort of putting these responses together. Why the hell would you not take the minute to follow up, guys? It's like, you know, that's the guy. Did you ever see that picture of that image of the guy? You know, let me see if I can go here. Mining gold. Let me see here. Falls short. And this is where I'm gonna end, if I can find this image, because this really is gonna summarize my whole point with today's video. Right here. This is it, guys. This is where I'm gonna end. Let me see, does this one have a... Many of life's failures are people who do not realize how close they were to success when they give up. Thomas Edison. So you go through all this effort to respond to these things. You know, you're excited, but then you go a little bit further, then you're this guy down here, and you stop just short. You don't do that follow-up, or maybe you've done 5 of these and you got nothing else in that 6th one, you know, with Miss Angelique Hatcher. Maybe she would have gotten you. She remembered you. She would have called you to ask you something, you know. So don't put in all of this effort of mining all this just to fall short, okay? Because it's what most people do. And if you want to step up to the next level, if you're having challenges, if you want to win more business, you got to do what everybody else isn't doing, and that means taking that extra step. So, like I said, as promised, I'm going to end here. It's probably gone 20 to 30 minutes here on this video. It's not letting me hop on over. So I apologize if you guys asked questions. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to click off here. And if there are any questions, I will answer those in the comments on this video. If you could do me a favor, if you're watching this in the replay or if you're watching this live right now, if you have if you would like to see more of these, I thought this would be more beneficial than kind of just posting arbitrary things or sending emails, because it's live and interactive. And I promise the next time I do a Facebook video, I'll make sure that I can see the comments live. But if you want to go ahead and post anything in the comments on this, did you like this? Do you have ideas to help shape what the next couple videos are that I'm going to do? You know, I'm doing these for you guys. I'm not doing it for myself. So if you have a specific situation, or, you know, if you want me to go on FBO and you want me to look at something specific for you and make an example out of it for the group, I am happy to do so. Or any other ideas, just drop those in the comments. Or if you want to send me a message through the group, you can do so. Or if you want to email me, my email is derekjames@govkidmethod.com. So, all right, guys, I'll stop sharing my screen, and I will see you next time.